Hey there, and welcome to episode number 35 of Killer POV. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G. from FearNet. Joining me as always is Rebecca McKendry from Fangoria.
You weren't supposed to come to me first. I'm eating pumpkin seeds.
I was going to say, what are you doing over there?
These are pumpkin seeds.
All right.
I didn't get lunch yet. So.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we're recording a little bit different time today, but that doesn't even matter. That's irrelevant.
Suspiria. Witch.
And that's Elric Kane from
Still on high.
Inside Horror.
I'm still high from last night.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
We were all referencing Goblin. Goblin came to LA for 3 nights.
Claudio
we were
Simonetti
at 2
rocked
of the
it.
3.
Oh, yeah.
So
It was so fun. And the coolest thing about last night was, and they had to leave, but they followed Phil Blankenship's print of Tenebrae. Is one of the best prints of any movie I've ever seen. It was just
Really?
it was just like one of those prints. You're like, how does a print stay that
So
clean?
wait, it's Phil's,
wow.
so we can...
It was Phil's, exactly. So you could see it again.
Screen it again.
It was gorgeous. I didn't want to stay. I was tired. And I was like, maybe I should go. And I sat down for 5 minutes. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm watching Tenebrae. Because it was a good print.
yeah,
We
I went the night of Deep Red, but I didn't stick around for it because it went really late.
Yeah, no, a lot of people
Yeah, that's
can.
what everybody had forewarned me, that it was going to go till like 1:30, and I feel bad when we have a babysitter who we
Right.
don't know that well. I was like, guys, we can't stay till 1:30 tonight. I feel kind of bad. So.
Yeah, no, it was late, but it was gorgeous. But I also realized there's a lot of goofy things about that. That film I always think of as his best made. It's not my favorite, but I always think it's like his best made.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's about 2 or 3 scenes that are so ludicrous in that film that you need to go back. I mean, there's a scene with a car accident where literally they just drive through this car accident and their eyes go really wide and they go, whoo, and you're just like, what the hell? You're like, what did that? I as soon as I walked out of the movie, I was like, I like to believe that life in Italy every day is just like Tenebrae.
that?
Like you're being chased by dogs, homeless men.
Everyone's slapping somebody else. And
It's such a bizarre film.
I would argue that there's at least 1 or 2 ludicrous scenes in every single one.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I really
you're
got to
definitely-
go with that.
You're absolutely correct.
Like the snake scene in Suspiria.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always just like, I don't even know what to make of this.
It's weird. Deep Red's probably the straightest, but it also struggles the most, I think, with pacing because of that.
It's
because
very slow at points.
Yeah, it really is one of the. It has moments where it just kicks electric when the score kicks in and he's climbing up the outside of the house. But but no, you're totally right. His films, he always has uneven things in his film.
I
But
love when
it
that
has
little dude
incredible.
shows up in Phenomenon.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which obviously is supposed to be a kid, but it's like a little a dwarf or something with makeup, and you're just like, that's so disturbing.
That was one of my favorite parts of Goblin when they played the Phenomena stuff. I thought that was great. The Tenebrae track's incredible.
It is
Yeah.
What's that
amazing.
thing he uses in his mouth, like to make like a computer voice?
Oh yeah. I don't know what it's called technically. I should, but I
That was cool.
Yeah,
and that's
it was
on
really cool.
I mean, I'd like to assume that everybody listening knows who the hell Goblin is, but if
If you've
don't-
seen Suspiria, you have.
I would have thought so, but so many people on my Facebook page were then immediately like, are these the guys that did Dawn of the Dead? And it
Yes,
was just like,
technically.
and they are the guys who did Dawn
they'll
of the
say
Dead.
zombie.
But
Zombie.
they were all like, and this one's
It's
from
zombie.
Zombie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of these things where I assumed, like when I posted up, holy frick, I'm at Goblin, that everybody would be like, oh, we know exactly who they were. But there were a lot of people asking, who is that?
Yeah.
Are they the people that did blankety blank? So yeah, I don't think that they're quite as, it's a niche band.
It's we talked about it last week. There's nothing like your first experience of a soundtrack. Like I just remember Suspiria on VHS. Somebody put it in. I didn't know what to make of the movie. I couldn't even believe what I was seeing because I was like, the girl's walking through an airport. And the score is at crank to 190, and you're like, nothing's actually happening.
Yeah.
And yet now I look back and go, wow, that's cinema, man. That's like as good as it gets.
Well, I
It's so
said
interesting.
last night that Goblin pretty much soundtracked my childhood.
Yeah.
And that's still how I look at it when I look back at like the quintessential films that I watched over and over when I was a kid. They're on every single one of them.
Yeah, and I mean the significance of this is the first time. I mean, I think Claudio Simonetti has played before. In the U.S. It's stuff like I think Lawrence at FearNet said he caught him at some convention where it was him and some other people. But, this is the founding members of Goblin touring the U.S. for the first time. The night that we saw them, they're like, 40 years ago, we never thought we'd be playing the Egyptian Theater in Los Angeles. So it's amazing that this is their first like full-fledged U.S. tour.
Yeah.
And no one thought they'd be playing the Egyptian of all
my
places.
God.
Like,
Yeah.
a movie theater which housed Chaplin and stuff, and the guy who runs it kept telling me, like, Chaplin's going to be rolling in his grave. I'm blowing up the whole place. It's going to light on fire. It's like,
It's great.
But it's pretty crazy.
It was
they had,
awesome.
And when they played the score stuff, I'm sure you could find videos now. I know I posted one, but they had snippets of the movies playing behind them as they played those score elements. It was awesome.
They're the best moments. Just sitting at the back, just taking it all and going, that's so good.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was a bit confused by the dancer, I gotta say.
Oh, yeah.
That one I was a little kind of like,
I heard somebody told me
I don't really know what to make of that.
it was one of their daughters.
See,
was
that's
the
what I
dancer.
figured. I was like, it has to be a family member.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But so we saw her for a couple of scenes.
But that added to the weirdness of it.
It did. And I got to say, I had to take Benadryl right before we went in because I was sneezing so bad. And Elric kept saying I was sick. And I was like,
going to burn her like a plague.
Elric was like, witch. And I was like, it's allergies, dude. So I finally got sick of sneezing and coughing during the show. So I took Benadryl. And the second half, I was on like this Benadryl stoned feeling. And it just enhanced it even more. I'm not saying take drugs before concerts, but if you happen to have allergies, you know, it definitely, it made it more amusing.
We highly recommend you travel to Italy
As soon as possible.
as soon as possible now that you can't see them here anymore and go see them.
Yes.
It was something special. But yeah, we're going to do a quick roundtable of what we've seen because last week's been really a lot of stuff and we have an amazing show and guests coming in soon. Who wants to kick it off?
I can. I saw some really weird shit that I could not wait to talk to you guys about on the show.
Should I leave my pants on or what? What are we going to do?
You can't.
Is this a pants off conversation?
This is a pants off. He gets
Okay.
weird to get the pants come off.
Pants come off.
Well, I finally checked out. Scream Factory put out that double feature of X-Ray and Schizoid. And X-Ray is AKA Hospital Massacre from 1982.
Yeah.
It's one of the most batshit crazy slasher movies. I cannot believe I've never seen it. I mean, and it opens like it opens like a very My Bloody Valentine kind of way where it's like it's all kids. It's like these two kids are hanging out and this guy's dropping off like a Valentine's Day card for the girl because he's in love with her. I mean, they're all like 12 or whatever. And I can't remember exactly what happens. I think the girl like laughs and crumbles it up. So then the angry kid is in the window watching. And years later, he becomes like this guy that's going to be the hospital massacre.
I'll do it.
Yeah. So
Takes one.
That's it. That's the backstory.
Man.
Yeah.
I should
That's
have gone on
pretty much
so
it.
many slasher rages by now with that type of reinjection.
Oh my God. But yeah, there was, I can't explain it. It's just got that unique early 80s flavor to it where it's kind of over the top. You know, I mean, there's like one gag where the girl gets in an elevator and like the main character and she looks over and there's a guy with like blood on his face or there's blood on the floor that she notices. And you're thinking like, that looks like bad blood. It looks like ketchup or something. And then it pans to the guy who's like creepy. And then he like takes a bite of a burger and the ketchup squirts out. So it is ketchup. It's like, they do a lot of funny gags like that. I don't know if it's intended to be funny. I assume it is, but it's really crazy. And then when the killer shows up, he just looks like a hospital orderly with his face covered up. He's just like very frantic, so he moves super fast and stuff. So it's a really wacky movie. And again, if you're into that era of slashers, you should definitely see it.
If you're listening to the show, you probably are.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
yes.
kind of everyone's favorite.
Schizoid. Is that the one with Klaus Kinski?
Yes, but
Okay.
I haven't watched that yet. I've heard complaints that it's very boring.
I think it's very boring.
That's what I
My
heard.
husband will watch anything. Klaus Kinski could be like reading nursery rhymes and he would watch it. Actually,
like
that
that.
would be really amusing, actually. But
Speaking of rapey and boring,
yeah, exactly.
there was somebody very rapey and boring at our show last night.
Yes, there
I
was.
saw.
Did you see him kick people out of their seats?
No, but somebody, and I'm not going to name him, so you're going to have to use your imagination, go back to one of our episodes. But somebody came up to me and goes, I want you to meet this guy. I'm going to introduce you to this guy who's really big right now. You're going to meet him, and he's not going to even make eye contact with you because he's a freaking asshole. So I want you to see what a real asshole's like. So this person, friend of ours, introduced me, and we shook hands, and not once in about a minute of her introduction to him, and he's just looking at everywhere but me. Like his eyes never even rested on me. And she's talking, Ulrich runs this, and he's going,
Okay. The same person.
Go back to episode 2 to know who we're talking
The
about.
same person that you're talking about, when I interviewed him, he texted on his phone the entire time.
You're not important enough, Rebecca.
I know.
This is an
We're not going to
actor.
tell you who he is, but you know what's? Look, Green Inferno is going to be at the midnight at AFI Fest, which is going to be cool. I'm looking forward to that movie.
I'm so glad that he's directing
Yeah.
again instead of acting. Terrible.
But,
The
bear.
movies.
I was in the middle of a thought about Klaus Kinski. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Schizoid. Boring.
Schizoid, boring.
but not rapey, not rapey.
But not
But it's
rapey.
not
That's
rapey.
good.
So
But it's
don't-
Klaus Kinski.
So yeah, just watch X-Ray. You don't need to watch the other one.
Yeah.
And the other thing I saw, I got to thank Darren Bausman because I was
Who
having
could not get in last night.
I know.
He was walking past
tried.
on his way
I
to
did my
see
best.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, man.
And they were like, what's going on, guys? And we were like, we're here for Goblin. And it was just like this shock on his face.
Yeah, he looked pretty unhappy.
Yeah, he texted me about it. I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. If I knew you wanted to go, I would have tried to get you a ticket or something. But anyway, I was having a moment and he kidnapped me over the weekend. Thankfully, I did not end up in a saw trap. Instead, he's like, oh, come on, man, let's watch a movie and just hang out or whatever. He rented Bad Milo, which...
Is that one where the guy's appendix is like his friend or his gallbladder?
Kind of.
Don't do any spoilers because I want to see this really bad.
I can't. I mean, it is hilarious.
It
is
looks
hilarious.
It's got the guy from the state. Yeah, Ken Marino.
And it looks like it ties in well with one of the films I saw this weekend that looks very similar to it.
Yeah. Well, if you want, just watch the trailer. I mean, it's this cute little goblin gremlin thing that lives up his ass, apparently. And I mean, that's the first thing they say. The doctor is like, he's like, oh, why am I having these, problems or whatever? And he's like, hey, you got a thing up your butt. And that's like, that's the tone of it. So when he gets angry, Milo kind of comes out and does what he has to do. But yeah, I mean, you can't take it seriously. I love horror comedy stuff, and I want a Milo doll immediately.
Aww.
It's by the editors of the Duplass Brothers movies, and they helped produce it.
Yeah.
So if you're into, that's where this term mumblegore, I just shared the article about tonight, which has got some good stuff in it. But I do not like the title, and I think we need to find a new name for mumblegore. Mumblegore. So we need to not have mumblegore. We do not want that as, because it's not actually applicable to all the films. They lump it anything indie.
Yeah.
But mumblecore, actually, the idea of mumblecore came from bad sound recording and mumblecore movies because the actors kind of mumbled.
Yeah.
And so for to lump in movies with like professional, it just seems like a bit of a stretch. So
yeah, the signal doesn't belong in there, and that's one they mention a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's quite a lot that doesn't fit.
Yeah, the one that's kind of the poster child of it was Baghead, which was the Duplass.
That one totally
film.
belongs there,
Yeah, it does,
and they would
completely.
happily say that because they are mumblecore. But
yeah, somebody said that the film that I screened at Screamfest last week, somebody called the barista mumblecore, and I was like, not in any way, guys. Just because people talk a lot and nothing else happens, not mumblecore.
Yeah. Chase kind of mumbles, but that's his acting style.
Good acting. I like that though.
Well, I just want to say I don't have to do all mine right now, but to tie in with yours.
Yeah, what'd you say?
Well, actually, I saw you at that party. I was at the same place.
That's right. Yeah.
So
right
Darren escaped you, and then we ran into each other at a party. I was dressed as Silent Night, Deadly Night, and you were dressed as not Phantom this time. You were not.
I was
dressed.
myself.
You were yourself.
Is this Tammy's?
Yeah.
Oh, damn it.
Again, I didn't intend to go out at all, and I was dragged out. Rightfully so. It was much needed.
And I wanted to make a present to the party, but I also needed to go see Basket Case, which is very close, I think, to Milo, probably conceptually.
Yes, that's true.
So I had pretty much the weirdest night where I had to escape this party. I had about 10 minutes to get across town. I had to change out of a bloody Santa outfit in the car while a Mexican family watched me, laughing at me. And then I had to keep texting the people who ran Cinema Family saying, please delay. And I got there 2 minutes late. And that was, I put it up there with when I first saw Razorhead. It was probably my favorite midnight show I've ever been to. Because the print was glorious.
Good crowd?
Yeah, really good crowd, really great screening. But the film, it felt like seeing it for the first time because I feel like if you've only seen that on VHS or DVD by yourself, it's a totally different movie with people. It's just a movie that's really funny. It was made for $30,000. All that money is really, you see it in the creature and the weird looks. And it's just so fun. That was just so much fun. I saw it by myself. I didn't go with anyone. And I had an absolute blast. And I felt like I'd cracked the code to feeling tired the next day because I said, if it's a true midnight movie, maybe you don't feel tired the next day.
Ooh.
Because I watched it and felt fine the next day. All the other ones they've shown, I felt wrecked. I'm like, maybe if it's got something about it, there's some alchemy that keeps you, youthful.
It energizes you.
Who knows?
Good theory.
Or I'm really full of shit.
I think that's it.
A little of that. But.
I will test your theory when I try to sit through Halloween 6 this weekend.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Well, I don't know if that's a true midnight movie.
That's true.
That's the problem. But Basket Case is really great. But the way it ended, it's been so long since I've seen number 2. I'm dying to see number 2 because I have no idea what... I can't remember how on earth they could have gone because, spoiler alert, no one's left standing at the end of 1 for how the fuck they did it. But I'm looking forward to finding out. And just real quick stuff, we had Creepshow, thanks to Becca and Finger. And Creepshow was a lot of fun. The Phantom of Paradise came and visited us there. He needed a charger really bad for his phone.
Yeah.
This is very in-jokey, sorry. Creepshow was great. And the one thing I walked away with, I still love the 2 stories I always loved the most. I still don't care much for the King one that everyone always gets on me about.
I think that's fun.
It's
I
fun,
like the King
but
one.
I think Leslie Nielsen's amazing in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's just so funny and dark. And when he laughs at the end, when he's dying, you're just like, this is some dark.
Yeah.
That one, and I still think the Crate. For me, the Crate still holds up as a perfect, just short form movie. Well, forget an anthology. It's just a great, and maybe it's a little long for that anthology.
Right.
But the shock of watching Creepshow again, did not remember that Tom Atkins played the dad. And he's such an asshole that I walked away going, man, Tom Atkins should never be an asshole.
Yeah.
Because he
like
is
him
so
too much.
lovable.
Yeah.
That was kind of weird seeing him as a bad dad. But but it was cool. I had forgotten that totally. But it was great seeing that film print of that. It was really a lot of fun.
Ooh, I'm I'm glad that went over well.
Yeah, no, it did. And then I had a great night of short films the next night. I won't bore everyone with all of them, but Becca had one. There was just great for it. Vic, the film that
Oh my God.
screened like, there's a movie Sage Stallone, who passed this year, directed, called Vic. We'll tell you should just go to Grindhouse Releasing and order yourself a copy and watch
it.
But
I have heard so much good stuff.
Not horror, but just a great
Opens with horror.
piece. Well, yeah, it's just a great little piece of cinema. And I mean, I was seeing the reactions from your screening, and people were like, man, I was devastated by Vic.
Basically, I've never seen a crowd go like, Becca can attest, it was probably one of the best things we've ever done at Jump Cut. It was like these artists and people there together, buzzing off each other's
filled up back down the hallway. It was like somebody stands up to go, and
it
people
was pretty
would like
electric.
jump for the seat.
But people
were
were having great fun, and people felt like their work was being curated nicely because they're putting all these great films together. So that ends, and it's kind of punk, and everyone's had fun. And then we put on Vic, which isn't a feel good thing. So not everyone stayed, but the people who stayed, Clu Gulager, the star of it, and the Return of the Living Dead star, gets up and has everyone basically in tears, talking about poetry and humiliation in art, and how Sage suffered that his whole life, and how Clu's passed that on to John, and it's pretty deep shit. And then you watch this movie, and you're basically all on the verge of tears. The same horror crowd who was just jumping out of their seats, but everyone who stayed, it kind of felt like changed or something in that small way. Yeah. It's almost like the first movies are the ones that get you excited. Hey, we're making movies, and then the next one is like, this is why you do it, though. The real under all that fun. There's an art. There's something you needed to say. Yeah. And Sage obviously said it with that movie. But yeah, it was really great. And I'd only seen a few minutes excerpts of it. So I was pretty blown away.
Yeah, I want to talk about that at some point on a later show when we have an apt guest for it.
Yeah, exactly. It might be John and Clu. It could be fun to have them in. I'm sure they'd talk, because John shot it,
Yeah, so, he did.
And he was there too. But yeah, it's just great. If you guys are interested in what we're talking about, definitely go to Grindhouse Releasing and get a copy. I'm sure it's cheap, probably $10.
Right. Very cool.
But that's the bulk of all this craziness.
I've been hanging out at the Beyond Fest, or at least I was this weekend. So I saw A Field in England, which is the new British horror film from Ben Wheatley.
Oh, okay.
And it is definitely not for everyone. It's not for everyone, but it's
seems to be his track record now.
Yeah, I know. It's essentially, I gotta say, it's like one of the smartest low budget things I've ever seen, because it's set during the British Civil War. So we're talking like, way back 1700s. And it's a whole bunch of guys in a field all battling each other. So they can't leave the field because they'll kill each other. But they're stuck there, and they're trying to dig up treasure that they think is there. But there's these opposing sides. And then they all end up, out of hunger, eating these mushrooms in the field. And the mushrooms cause them to trip. And apparently it's based off a true story where, like, the British Civil War, they would actually, they'd be stuck in these isolated areas where they couldn't find food. So they would eat the mushrooms growing in the landscape. And then, so it's based off a true story. But then once they take the mushrooms, it amplifies everything, and it becomes a really, really trippy film. So it really is just like, I think it's 7 guys in 17th century garb hanging out in a field. So, or I guess it's, that would be 1700s garb. So yeah, but it's entirely shot in black and white. So it's really, really pretty. It's absolutely beautiful to look at, and very stark at the same time. And then after that, I saw Borderlands, which is probably the best found footage film I've ever seen. I mean,
is it English? Yeah. British? Okay.
I can't say that, that it's a generally spooky movie. The sound design on it is awesome. The plot, it's nothing that's like, oh my God, this is completely changing the game. But it is the best use of found footage ever. So, and I got to have a really interesting talk with the filmmakers of Borderlands afterwards about the British film industry. And, for them, it's, we think it's hard to find money and opportunities here in Los Angeles. Apparently, across the sea, it's even like 10 times worse.
Wow.
So I think
they're just crying. I think everyone thinks they've got the worst. Any country you go to, the difference is they have a lottery system. There's no lottery system in America. They can still put forward a good project and get funded. Yeah. Even though their chance is still very low, it's still a lottery. That's in America, it's all private financing.
And from doing Screamfest, I know that European governments, many of the countries have these systems set up where they give funds to make shorts. So it's not unheard of to get 10,000 to make a short, which is what Elric and I saw a lot of at Screamfest, were these like $10,000 to $50,000 shorts, and ours, we're used to shooting for like $1,000.
That was pretty weird. Did we talk about Screamfest last time?
We didn't. I don't think so.
We showed Barista, and Barista was last, and all the films were true horror films. I don't think there was a comedy amongst them.
Except ours.
Barista's obviously a total comedy, and it was made for like a couple $1,000s. Literally every film looked to be like 20 to 40,000, and maybe the Australian one even 60 or 70,000. And it was kind of funny. It was kind of weird to see it, and it was great because they used the comedy at the end to lighten the whole thing.
Yeah.
Everyone liked it.
Yeah.
But it was weird to see just how much money is put into shorts.
Elric leaned over at one point and he goes,
Australian.
Ours was shot for their catering budget.
Less.
And I was like, yeah.
Probably on one day. I mean, in all honesty, probably one day of a catering. But it's true. Like I know from experience in New Zealand, you can get up to $90,000 for a short film.
That's insane.
And that's
like, I
just
could shoot a
given to
feature
you.
for that. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the flip side of that is they don't make a lot of good features. So you get a lot of people making very expensive shorts who never really get a chance to make a real feature. And so it needs to, those kind of systems, they need to think a little bit more about. I think making a low budget feature prepares you a lot better to make another feature than a short. But
so maybe it is beneficial. I mean, like, whenever I want to shoot a short, I'm like, I'll have a yard sale.
Yeah.
I can make like a couple hundred that way, and then I'll make a short with it. And so I
love reading stories like that. Like I remember that film George Washington, David Gordon Green, who was meant to do Suspiria. There's a great story about him. Say he worked every night during film school but he worked in this one place where they had to do chemical treatment of doorknobs, which was kind of toxic and really bad for you. And he said, I did that I think he did it for a year. And he said, the only reason I did that, every single time I did that, I was thinking about the anamorphic lens that I was going to get by doing that one job. And that one job, the like $9,000 he needed extra for that one lens, and that's a real filmmaker who's already thinking, like, I need a specific thing, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get that. I have a lot of, I didn't want him to make Suspiria. I don't want to give him too much love. I really didn't, but I do love that kind of commitment,
But yeah, we see a lot of that here in Los Angeles. I work a second job just so I can buy this particular camera I want. Not that they couldn't survive without it, but they want that camera.
Yeah.
The balance of life and trying to make films is very difficult for everyone.
Yeah.
It's crazy because not many people are making, even the people you out there probably think, oh, Ty West, and you hear these names. I doubt those guys are sitting on a hog just yet. I'm sure they have to think about how they're paying their rent, and that might be shocking to some people. They think they make their feature and they're set.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah, but that's not to dissuade anyone. You got to chase. That was the cool thing about Vic. You got to chase it. I did want to also, we did have a random, we're going to have a break.
Do we have a guest?
Okay, so our guest has arrived. So we took a quick little break, but we are back. And obviously it's Halloween this week, so we wanted to do a special Halloween edition of Killer POV. And I can think of nobody better to talk about Halloween stuff than the director and writer of Trick or Treat, Michael Dougherty. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
This is actually my first podcast.
Oh my God, first ever.
You've popped my podcast chair.
Yes.
I like that.
I like that too. And we'll try to keep it interesting. I know you've been doing interviews all week because Trick or Treat is showing this Monday night at the Egyptian Theater here as part of Beyond Fest. But the cool thing is Michael and a lot of the cast are going to be doing a Q&A right after the screening. And if you have Facebook, this is all it takes to attend. If you have Facebook, you can see it. They'll be streaming the entire movie and then the Q&A right after on Facebook through Legendary's Facebook page. So if you have been making excuses all these years about watching Trick or Treat, first of all, you shouldn't be listening to the show if you've never seen it. That's number one.
That's insane.
Second, this is your chance to see it for free and then hear some of the filmmakers talk about it after. So that's the
Can they be involved in the conversation, the Q&A?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Oh, really? That's
Nice.
cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, they can send questions after the screening as part of the Q&A. I can't guarantee I'll answer them.
Of course, that's cool.
Who knows what kind of questions we'll get, but they'll be moderated.
Right. So we will do our best. I'll definitely be there. Do you guys get tickets yet? Or?
I hope so. No, I'll just show up and that's the other thing. I want people to show up in a waiting line because there's a good chance to get in because any free event, you never know what's going to happen.
That's true.
So Egyptian's a big theater.
Yeah. As of now, it's sold out, but I wouldn't, if you're in LA, I wouldn't let that discourage you from showing up because, people are on standby for the Goblin show.
Let's just put it this way. I went to Day of the Dead a week ago and I got to meet George Romero with 200 people in a 500 person sold out event.
Wow.
So if that's any indication that you don't give up.
Yeah.
See this film on a big screen. It's going to be awesome. It's worth waiting for half an hour in line,
Yeah. So, I mean, so of course, Trick or Treat is this wonderful, wonderful, loving homage to all things Halloween. And we wanted to talk a little bit about those topics. I mean, this has got to be wild for you. It's been several years since it sort of came out, and people embraced it right away. I remember, I mean, definitely the horror community. It was one of those things, as soon as we saw it, that we were like, oh my God, finally.
Yeah, Fango, we hosted the screenings we did a couple of them around the country, and every single one was sold out. And this is like way, way back at the very beginning.
We also see all the critics' bylines on the trailer, and you're like, this is literally the best reviewed horror film probably in the last 10, 15 years. Yeah. And then yet a lot of people couldn't see it. So, I mean, for the origin story, let's start there. Because I think some people probably don't know the history. You know, we did just talk about All the Boys Love Mandy Lane last week, so there's some similarities.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that was kind of in your head for quite a while.
A very, very long time. It started off as an animated short film I did when I was still at NYU. And I mean, it was an old school animated short, all drawn with paper and pencils and, you know, animation cells.
So cool.
Which I watched last night. It's beautiful.
It's great.
Oh, thanks.
It's a nice film, yeah.
And this is like before computers were doing. As I was finishing it, Toy Story came out, so it was made during that transition from old school traditional animation into digital. And that was just a 3-minute animated piece, but it introduced the character of Sam. And even back then, I thought, wow, it sure would be neat if I could do this as a live action film someday. You know, just one of those pipe dreams that you just kind of wish for and put in the back of your mind. And as I started to make the transition from animator into screenwriter, I was trying to think of, you know, well, what would my first sort of spec script be? And I had just moved to LA, and I was actually working with Stan Winston on an online project because everybody wanted to have a .com, including Stan.
Yeah.
And Stan was trying to think of like, well, what kind of cool online thing can I do? And we had cooked up this whole thing, which never happened. But while we were working together, I decided to finally take a stab at writing a spec script, and I cheated. I said, you know, this whole 3-act structure confounds me. I'm going to cheat and make it a horror anthology because, you know, I grew up with horror anthologies. I mean, in the 80s, they were everywhere. Yeah. I mean, there were at one point, I think there were 7 to 8 different anthology TV shows on the air at the same time.
Wow.
And then multiple anthology horror films in theaters too. And so my love for them never went away. You know, and I was raised on Twilight Zone pretty much. Yeah. And so I cheated. You know, I was like, well, if I just take 4 short stories and slam them together, that's my spec script. And I realized I had 2 Halloween themed short stories I had written in college. One of which was the werewolf story from Trick or Treat. And the other one was the Dylan Baker story. Okay. The father trying to bury the body in the backyard. And so those 2 were pretty much rough versions of them existed. And then I said, well, I only have to write 2 more. So I came up with the Rock Quarry story and Krieg versus Sam. And that was where I realized, I could take this little animated character I had created and turn him into a live action character. And originally it was a very strict anthology. It was one story after another. They didn't really have too many crossover moments. And then I realized, well, it's more fun if, you know, these kids from story B show up on character A's porch. And what if
it elevates it a lot?
Yeah,
really
and all of a sudden
amazing.
I kept finding all these threads to tie together, and Sam became the best thread because he could wander from story to story. Like I have this little joke that he's taking on a life of his own. I swear to God, like he just sprouted from the dark corners of my mind. He demands life, and I feel like I'm just his puppet. And he started to invade the other stories. So all of a sudden, he started to, you know, show up on someone's porch or in the woods, and as the script developed more and more over the years, the stories became more intertwined, a la Pulp Fiction or Go. And Stan and I worked on it for a long time, for years. Actually, his studio isn't far from here. Yeah. And I wrote it in his trophy room where he used to display all the classic monsters. So there was Pumpkinhead watching me and the Alien Queen over there. And
nice.
That's pretty cool.
And
inspiration.
Yeah, it was massively inspiring. And so that's how it all kind of started. But it was a very long road. So from 1996, that was the origin point with a short. And then in 2000, I wrote the first drafts of the film. And then we started shooting it in 2002, 2000 was the script, and then 2006 we started shooting the film.
Was it a tough sell because at that point anthologies had kind of just disappeared?
They
so,
still, I mean,
people still don't feel like they can pull it off for whatever reason.
Yeah,
But-
it was a very tough sell. I mean, it was a great writing sample to have, and ultimately, I think it's what helped lead to doing X2, because that just became a way for my agents to introduce me as a writer. But the interesting feedback that Stan and I got from all the studios at the time, because he wanted to package it like a traditional anthology. Like at one point, he had attached Romero,
Oh, wow.
Toby Hooper, himself, and Carpenter. So everyone was going to do their own segment. And I was like, oh, wow, well, of course this is going to happen. Like, who's going to turn down this package?
Yeah.
Everybody turned down the package.
Wow.
Every studio said, this is my favorite part about it. They go, this is vampires and werewolves and zombies. Who wants that shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is right. This was like the height of, what year was this?
2000.
2000. So this is like right when things were transitioning into J horror. So we would have been seeing like
Right.
The Grudge, The Ring, Sixth Sense. So yeah.
Well, it was still also that post-Scream era.
Post Scream. So we would have gotten the self-aware horror.
Right. So it was a lot of meta horror. It was a lot of Five Pretty Faces, a lot of 20-somethings pretending to be teenagers with their faces in half profile on the poster.
Urban Legend.
Yes,
I
there was a
know
lot of
what you
that.
did last summer. Yeah.
So all the studios were caught up in Scream knockoffs and J-horror, and they all said, this is too old-fashioned. Nobody wants to see vampires, werewolves, and zombies. Now look where we
Cut to
are.
the
Yeah, it's pretty.
You know, and even back then I was saying, no, you don't get it. Horror is cyclical.
And the trends
What
always
goes
are.
around comes around. And you guys need to be thinking about what comes next. And I'm telling you, vampires, werewolves, and zombies are coming back.
Wow.
And we were just, dismissed from every single studio.
Yeah.
So it
It's
was
just
a
amazing to me.
very tough sell.
Yeah, and plus,
Yeah,
like
it's
you're giving them like, well, you can license this every year in October. Like all these networks.
Well, that's what it reminded me. That Trick or Treat it reminded me completely of what we've discussed before, which is what Halloween 3 was trying to do.
Right.
So they had discussed that they were going to change every year. They were going to release a movie. Trick or Treat would have been the ultimate film like that for them. If that had been that year's release. In fact, all of those films in Trick or Treat could have been features under that mandate, But and it just shows that could succeed and become a great film. But obviously they're shut down because of Michael Myers back then. But but it's cool. I mean, that's the only other film now. When I think about Halloween, what I want to watch now, the two that still surprise me are Trick or Treat and Halloween 3.
Yeah.
Because I know what to expect from them. I've done it a million times.
Well, the funny thing about it, I love Carpenter's film. My start gift, at the time I started shooting Trick or Treat, Carpenter and I had the same agent. And so my start gift was a Halloween poster signed by John.
Oh, nice.
Break a leg kid. So I'm convinced that was the good luck totem that allowed us to have the success that we did. But I always wanted to make a companion piece to Halloween. I love it to death, but at the same time, the part of it that I felt was missing was a film that really explored the actual very dark traditions and sort of folklore around the holiday. Because you could take Halloween and set it on Valentine's Day,
Totally.
or any other holiday you wanted. And so I wanted something that really got into actual supernatural creatures and legends.
Well, for me, the first time I saw it was in New York at the Two Boots. You came out for it.
That was the best screening.
I have a story about that screening.
Yeah, double bill with Let the Right One In.
Let the right one in. We
Those two
sold out of that
movies-
one weeks in advance.
Yeah,
we had
that-
lines around the block.
That
too.
night restored my faith in horror movies again. Because, I can't remember what was coming out at the time, but seeing those two films back to back and not knowing, I definitely didn't know anything about Trick or Treat other than, it's an anthology. But both of those back to back blew me away. And I mean, again, it's one of those films that now I celebrate with John Carpenter's Halloween on Halloween Day. Obviously it was well received when it first came out, but when did you start to get a sense that, that it had kind of had this cult following that kept growing, seeing kids in Sam costumes and things like that? When did you realize, it didn't get the theatrical release it deserved, but it is connecting with people?
There wasn't a single moment where I realized, I will say that the first time where it did start to turn around was after Harry Knowles screened it at Button-Up-A-Thon in Austin at the Alamo Drafthouse. Because what happened was, I didn't know what the movie was. It was a very emotional journey, which took me to some very dark places. made me question everything about, why am I bothering making movies? Because, the studio was down on it. They really were. Stuff had gotten back to me about what they actually thought about it, and it hurt. And Harry called up out of the blue and he said, I heard it's good. I don't know where you're at with the movie, but I heard it's good. And so I want to screen it at my film festival. But it was terrifying because his Button-Umathon is 24 hours of movies. And you're pretty much locked in the theater with Harry and all these Austin film geeks, but also people fly in from around the world for this. So it's people who know their movies. And it's Ain't It Cool News people, and they know their movies, and they're harsh with movies they don't like. They're very vocal. And so to cap it off, Harry says, you're going to be the last movie.
Whoa.
So
no pressure.
And everyone will have been awake all night.
Like, okay, so, and they, and he makes an amazing collection of films which are, classics, his personal favorites, and movies that haven't come out yet. And he goes, you're going to be last. You're going to finish it. And I was like, you're crazy. These people are going to be bleary-eyed and tired. And if you don't end it on a high note, it's going to be a lynch mob. And I can't guarantee this movie is going to be a high note because I don't know what it is. And he goes, it'll be fine. And it started screening. I was sick as a dog. I was sweating. And then stepped outside after the screening and everything turned around. People loved it. And that was the first time where we had screened it with an audience of, I felt, people who knew what the hell they were talking about when it came to film, especially genre and horror. And it was just total approval. And that's where I started to realize I didn't make a piece of shit. What do you know? And it kept building from there. So Legendary, because that led to all these online reviews.
Yeah.
And which then led to Legendary, who was always very supportive of the film, saying, well, why don't we keep doing this? Why don't we try and find other partners who are willing to screen it, with Fango and whatnot. And we kept having one screening after another, and this momentum and buzz started building and building, and all these reviews kept popping up out of every single screening. So it was sort of a gradual process where I realized, oh, thank God, there's something here.
Which is the true journey of a cult film.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not being imposed on people. It's actually taking its course.
Right. And
growing.
I think there's what I learned from the whole experience, because up until then, I had just done tentpole movies. It was just X2 and it was Superman. And as cool as those kinds of experiences are, in the back of your mind, that your visibility and sort of the success of your film is kind of bought and paid for already. Right. Because it's characters that people already know, that have been around for decades, and you're sort of just the foster parent right there for that period. And so, a good portion of the work is kind of done for you already with the pre-awareness and all those buzzwords. But to create something from scratch, which has little to no support from your studio, does not have any sort of cross promos with Taco Bell or Pepsi, has no commercials running in prime time, for it to sort of claw its way into relevancy and to have people embrace it, that affection from fans is real. It's genuine.
It's earned.
It's earned.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool. No, the story that I have to tell about how grassroots it was with you taking the film around the country was the day Fango does these screenings in New York City, and we always used to do them at the Pioneer 2 booth.
What a great
theater. I wish that place was still there. It was this theater, and originally it was on the east side of New York, and originally it was a porn house. They showed mostly porn there.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
42nd
That's
Street
why it was so
Pete
sticky.
lived there. I know. And it was a real small house, very kind of, homespun little theater. It was so much so that if you ordered a Diet Coke while you were there, they would open up a fridge and the employees' lunch would be sitting next to the can of Diet Coke you would get.
Nice.
But I absolutely love that place. But because it was so kind of a small theater, we always had to run everything that we did there ourselves. And so whenever we did a screening, it was chaos at the Fango office because we had to coordinate all the guest lists and who was coming and the tickets and everything like that. And so I'm neck deep in all of these reservations one day, and we have the 2 screenings that night. So it's twice as much work as usual. And there's this knock on the office door, and there's a guy standing there with the film reels. And I holler down the hallway, Tony, the courier's here with the film for tonight. And Tony comes into my office 5 seconds later and he goes, Becca, that's the filmmaker. And I was like, what the hell is the director doing with his own film reels, carting him around New York?
Man.
And I don't know if you heard it, but we had an argument in my office about
I didn't
the
hear
fact that I called you a courier.
No, dude, you're not the first one. I get
But yeah,
mistaken for like a
never-
Chinese food delivery boy all the time.
I had never, I mean, we do these screenings like every other week in New York. The filmmaker had never brought his own film to our
Yes,
office
yeah.
before.
That's pretty cool.
That happened a lot. I actually had to lug those film reels to Spain, to London.
Oh my gosh.
They bought the seat next to me on the plane for the film reels. They wouldn't let them go through customs or anything.
Yeah.
And so part of my rite of passage, I think, was lugging these things around the world, and they're heavy.
Yeah. And you looked burdened when you were there.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
It's also like and seems to be the subject of the film to me is that appearances are deceiving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the strengths of those stories are about what you're seeing isn't actually what you get. And that's what Halloween is for one.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the big things about horror fans. I think horror fans, people who think horror fans are people with tattoos and metal t-shirts, and there are a lot. I always like try to, I don't want to necessarily dress and act like that. And yet I'm equally into something as you are. And so I think that's a really fun, playful tone in the film,
Yeah.
So the fact that you are the courier of your own movie is kind of cool because they have to reconsider it,
Now, what was the studio's hesitation to release it theatrically? I always thought that it might be like they were scared to go against Saw because Saw kind of owned Halloween then, but did they ever give you a reason?
I never ever got a clear reason from anyone in charge. There were a lot of whispers and a lot of stuff sort of, coming down the grapevine. And I think it was a perfect storm of things. I think it went against the trends. So it wasn't torture porn. It wasn't a sequel. It wasn't a remake. And, we kill 14 kids.
Congratulations.
It's like a record. I think it's like
Nicely
a record
done.
outside of,
But they come back.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I said. I was
okay.
like, at the end, they're fine.
Yeah.
And,
Well, now, can I ask, were these the same people? Because this is always interesting to me about Hollywood. Were these the same people who were excited about the script?
well,
Or did the people change?
Yeah,
did people leave?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
it was a mix of that too, because what happened was Legendary was, a new production company at the time. And they had just gotten their deal with Warner Brothers. And it was the first project that they had sort of brought in and said, we want to make this. This is going to be the first project that we develop internally. Because the way their deal worked at the time was Warner Brothers would bring projects to Legendary and say, hey, do you want to co-finance this with us? And then reap the rewards afterwards. This is the first project that Legendary said, actually, this is going to be our baby, and you're going to co-finance it with us. And so they split the tab, which was $12 million all in. And, for Warner Brothers, $6 million is chump change. That's like the amount they spend on like Brad Pitt's trailer for Ocean's 11, whatever. And so, and they're so, it's all about tentpoles. It was all about Harry Potter and Batman with those guys. And a little movie like this and a horror movie isn't something that I think they understood. And, horror, I think, has a tough time at the studios in general. It's a very much a misunderstood and underappreciated genre, even though it's the genre that keeps the studios alive during tough times.
Right.
That's just part of its history. But a lot of execs just don't get it and don't like it, period. So even though this is the studio with The Exorcist and Creepshow and a lot of really great horror classics in their library, they just didn't like the genre. I have to say, there's a difference between the Warner Brothers then and the Warner Brothers now, because ironically enough, all the execs who were in charge of the studio at the time are no longer at the studio.
Yeah.
So there's a new regime in charge, so who knows what they think. But, it was the subject matter, and it's a weird movie. It's like we resurrected a format and sort of a subgenre of horror that hadn't been touched since the 80s. It was a horror comedy anthology. And the last time we had seen that was like the late 80s. So they just kind of looked at it like this feathered fish, like I'll never forget the marketing executive after one of our test screenings said, well, this is supposed to be a horror movie, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah, but your test audience was laughing. I'm like, yeah. but it's a horror movie. I'm like, why? You don't
see
get
Fright
it.
Night, please.
some
See Fright
See
Night.
anything.
See
I mean,
anything.
like, let me pull
Right.
up the Warner Brothers library and educate
Yeah.
you on your own films.
Yeah, they're having fun.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what people do at movies. They have
Yeah.
fun and laugh out loud.
But the other fun thing was we did a test screening in the Valley, and it it was a great reaction, like lots of laughter and applause and the kind of feedback you want from a horror film, but the numbers weren't quite there. And I actually used to work for the company NRG that does the test scores. And I was like, and so it didn't add up in my mind. I said, people were having a good time. I said, send me the cards. And Warner's was like, why do you want the cards? I was like, just send them to me. So they sent me the cards, and I remembered how to break down the cards. So I was like, okay, male, female, Caucasian, African-American, like just sat on my living room floor, broke it all down. And I did the numbers, and I called them back, and I said, 67% of your audience recruit were Hispanic women over the age of 35.
Wow. Which is not the target audience for that movie.
Right. And I was like, so why? And they're like, well, that's your horror movie audience. Those are the people that go to the horror movies opening weekend. I was
Hispanic women. I mean, they're
over
definitely
35.
in there, but
not over 35.
yeah, and I was like, this isn't our audience. Like, well, these are the people who went to go see Saw and Hostel opening weekend. And I was like, this isn't Saw or Hostel. Yeah. You guys have to understand the horror genre is composed of multiple subgenres. I was like, okay, just because it's a comedy, there's a difference between your Judd Apatow comedy and your Wayans Brothers comedy. You don't recruit one audience for the other. So I felt like I had to teach people about the genre as we were making it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Still going on.
Oh, and
Yes,
it's still very much going on. But then we did a second test screening where I said, all right, do me a favor, go to Orange County, go stand outside comic book shops and Hot Topic.
There you go.
And
That's
skate
it.
shops and grab the nerds and the geeks coming out of those stores, or the Apple store even, and do it and run it again. Did the exact same print, and the test scores went up by 80%.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Of course. So obviously you're a huge fan of Halloween itself. I'd like to say that all of us in the room, this is our favorite time of year.
But
I think you have to be if you're a horror fan. If you're a horror fan who hates Halloween, there's something wrong with you.
This is our Christmas.
I do have to say, I've developed like a love-hate because I love the holiday personally. It's still my favorite, but I know that as all three of us have been going through, with work,
We're exhausted.
It becomes so insane.
I was just talking about this.
With Fango.
I doubt I'll make it to Halloween night. Like Halloween night comes and I'll be asleep.
Yeah. Elric and I were talking about doing an event the week after Halloween, and Kamikazes the week after Halloween, and we were like, fuck it. It's not happening. You know what?
Yeah.
We're not doing it. Just
Yeah,
it's
too exhausting.
Yeah, it's like spring break where it's like I've been on vacation for, but it's not vacation because I'm partying constantly.
But we'll miss it. That's the thing.
I will.
We feel that way now.
At Christmas time,
we'll
I'm going to be
miss
like,
it.
man, there's nothing going on.
It's the November 1st blues.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
But I was just talking about that, and I said, I mean, it's such, it's good problems to have.
It is. Yeah.
But Halloween is no longer October 31st. It's October.
It
Totally.
is.
Like,
Totally.
the holiday is the month.
Yeah.
And we're just partying and sort of capping off the whole month of celebrations on the final night of it. But a good friend of mine said, because like we were getting upset, like genuinely upset that you walk into stores now and they already have, can I swear on this podcast?
Sure, yeah.
Fuck yes.
They already have the fucking Christmas decorations.
No,
Yeah.
not fair.
And it's just like, it feels like an invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what? Let's fucking invade September. Because, it's already kind of happening. Like you walk in around Labor Day and you see jack-o'-lanterns at Rite Aid. And I was like, let's make it official. Decorations go up in September.
Yeah.
We put ours up in September this year.
It's always tied to the weather for me. Like if you
Yeah.
get one crisp day, I'm like, okay, good. Halloween's
time.
on. It's on.
It's on.
And in
Yeah.
LA, that's a little hard, but
Yeah, I think I'm going to make a decree that we start prep in September.
Yeah.
I like it.
So that by
Yeah.
the time October rolls around, you have all your decorations to start going up in September, so that by the time we hit October, you can just enjoy the haunted houses and the parties and the pumpkin carving.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
Mine-
September 16th is now an official holiday. September 16th.
Yeah.
Well, mine's always, this is a press thing, but the Igor Awards, when we
Yeah,
get to go
that's
through all
usually-
the Universal Haunted Houses, that's like my kickoff.
That's
I'm
true,
like, okay,
yes.
it's begun now.
That's the
I
last
started-
week,
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I started a little before that. Actually, let's go into that. I want to go around the room and what are your yearly Halloween traditions? The few things you have to do every year. So for me, I like to watch horror movies. I now start mid-September because there's not enough days and nights for me to watch. This is when I break out the box sets and it's like, all right, I got to go through all the Universal Monster sequels and whatever, Hammer stuff that I've never seen. So now you have to start mid-September. So that's tradition one. So I watch horror from September all the way through. What other tradition? Oh, believe it or not, the first time I carved a pumpkin was like 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So
What's wrong with you?
I don't know.
What,
My
what happened
parents,
in your family?
They didn't support that part of it for some reason. So now that I did it and loved it, that is my yearly tradition. I do that Halloween morning. Like the morning I carve a pumpkin while I'm watching John Carpenter's Halloween.
Nice.
So those are two traditions that I definitely like to keep with. I'll think of some other ones. Oh, last one. For the last like 5 or so years, I like to buy one new mask every year for my collection. Well, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I might wear it. I might not.
That's
but
good.
I have a bunch of not mannequin heads, but like wig heads now in my room, slowly growing over
That's
the
not
years
twisted or
because-
anything, Rob.
No, it's not.
What was this year's? Did you buy this year's?
No, I mean, my Phantom mask might count,
I like it.
but
We
I think I want something a little more substantial than that.
So Rob went as Phantom of the Opera last week. It was a pretty sweet
that was
costume.
just for the hard trivia. I will have a different costume for actual Halloween.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it could be more than one costume as well.
Nice.
So
I've been
any
recycling.
other traditions, Michael? Anything that you have to do every year for sure, no matter what?
Carpenter's film is the first thing. So like once I smell it in the air, like once the temperature changes, there's always that day. It's like this cold wind rushes in, and you can just feel it and smell it. And I was actually surprised to actually feel it in Los Angeles when I moved here, because I was convinced it was just like an East Coast thing.
Yeah.
But there's a moment when like the temperature drops just enough, and then you smell like burning firewood somewhere in the distance.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's the cue.
That's
and
cue.
and I fire up like Carpenter's film, like that just starts it. And then it's sort of a slow build. You know, the cemetery goes up in the front yard. There's a pumpkin patch called Live Oak Canyon, which is just outside of LA. And it's like a real pumpkin patch with corn mazes and kettle corn and like a petting zoo. Like it feels like an East Coast farm.
I'm writing this down because I missed East Coast
There's
farms.
another one, some Anderson Family Farms.
So yeah, there's the Live Oak Canyon farm. And then it's like a slow build, whether it's making Halloween cookies. I found these new cookie cutters. They're called Ginger Dead Men.
Yeah.
Nice.
I have those.
Oh, they're awesome.
They're so cute.
You
Yeah.
owe Charles Band money for that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. He's getting loaded.
Yeah, I mean, it's our Christmas. I find the coolest thing about it is that it brings out everyone's creativity.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like even the guy from accounting is like making a robot suit in the garage. And it really helps me because I'm not the most social person. And it helps me like people more because you sort of like discover like, oh, there's like a sort of little horror nerd in everybody.
Yeah.
And LA's the best. Like I think
It's good.
LA on Halloween, I don't know what's happening, but it's like every theater is showing horror movies.
Yeah.
You know, multiple theme parks with haunted attractions and haunted houses. I feel like it's becoming like the capital. in a
Yeah.
weird way.
And whatever the street is, I think it's in West Hollywood where they cordon it off. And
Santa Monica Boulevard.
Santa
the
Monica.
costumes, when I first moved here, the costumes I saw that night were just mind-blowing
I don't
because it's
know.
the home of special effects. So you'll see Edward Scissorhands that literally looks like he walked off screen.
You know, I gotta say,
know?
I don't know if it compares to the New York one.
Really?
The New York
York one's
it
nuts.
was pretty insane. Like people would work all year on their costumes. I mean, the Santa Monica one was good. Don't get me wrong, but the New York one was, and I mean, that one was just insane.
I've done both. New York wins because it's a parade.
Yeah, and you
And-
parade your costume down.
Right. And so there's a structure to it, and there's giant ghost and skeleton puppets, like rod puppets.
Yeah, like think like Lion King on Broadway
Yeah.
style, but yeah.
But the
it's-
secret to the New York parade is not to stand on the sidelines and watch. It's you go get in costume and you walk with the parade.
with a beer. We always had I took a little like pulley suitcase along with beer in it.
That's
So,
the best way.
yeah.
Like, why stand there immobile watching things go by when you can be in the parade? Just put on a mask. It doesn't. You don't. There's no official sign up. There's no fee. Just go in the parade. All you do is wear a costume, and that way you can see things up close and kind of wander up and back with it.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I miss the New York Halloween parade just
Yeah.
because that was the best place. And the subways afterwards were crazy. And it was just like the whole city became a party.
Yeah, they just resurrected it because last year it got screwed over by Sandy.
Yeah.
So they just got the funds now to bring it back. Thank God.
See, I was surprised when I did the LA one. I'm also surprised by what LA people maybe don't recognize. And this was pre-Reanimated the musical. So before it kind of came back into consciousness. And I did Herbert West when I first moved here. And it's like, you know, I got the green slime stuff from the glow sticks and a syringe. And it was pretty good. Like, I think I got as close as I could. Went up and down the street. 3 people yelled out at me during it. All 3 of them were Japanese. And actually from Japan. And they were like batshit crazy for it. They're like, reanimate, running up to me, talking to me. No one else said a word. And I thought that was really interesting at the time because I was like, for me, it's very iconic, obviously. But I got the feeling to the masses, it wasn't really back. That character wasn't really in public conscious again. And I saw an Ash, but I do think like now it would probably be different because I think the musical, even though it's still probably mostly nerds and people like us who go to it, I think people are more aware of the character again. But I was really surprised. That was like, to me, I was like, oh, iconic. Everyone will get this. And it was like, nope, 3 Japanese guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they really liked it, so it's good.
I couldn't believe because I went as Ms. 45 at
that's right,
Halloween
yeah.
trivia.
That's
Do you
good.
know how many people asked me if I was the nun from Devil Inside? Like I just, and this isn't horror trivia. Are you guys serious?
But they had, in fairness, you have to see your leg to know that you're Miss 45.
I was wearing the blood red lipstick.
Because there are a
too.
lot of, but there's a
Come
lot
on,
of killer
guys.
nuns. There are
Come
lots
on.
of killer nun movies, and no one knows that better than you. There are a
You
lot of killer
are right,
nuns.
but they're all different costume wise. Like
That's true.
I matched that costume. That was Abel Ferrara right there. But anyways, so my big Halloween tradition is always decor. Like if you drive by my house right now in Burbank, I have a monster barbecue set up.
That's pretty cool.
With numerous zombies sitting around a table drinking beer, and they all have little body parts that they're eating. And then I've got a gremlin working the grill, and I've got a guy crawling out of a grave with mustard sticking up in the air. And apparently the newspaper came by a couple days ago and took pictures of the place. So yeah, I'm kind of excited. We have a skeleton wearing some like a sun hat, holding sunblock with her feet propped into a pool of sharks. So yeah, I go all out. And then the inside's pretty much decked out too. So that's always mine. I love the decorations.
I dropped her off the other day, and you kind of share a yard sort of with your neighbor. So there's a very distinct line where it just becomes green grass.
Well, yeah. Well,
your neighbor is definitely not a Halloween
my
person.
neighbor is a what is it? I can't even remember. She's an attorney for work related injuries. And she has a lot of cats, and she likes horror films. Like I took her a few, but she's very kind of traditional in her films and her decor and things like that. Like she really likes Nightmare Before Christmas. She's cool, but I felt weird trashing her yard too. I mean, like if I had been allowed to keep going, I mean, we would have added like
the whole thing.
We need like a shuffleboard for the werewolves or something. But no, I stopped at her point. So.
I don't know. My traditions are changing because of running Jump Cut. Obviously, I have to do a lot more. We get excited about changing. We have this cafe called Jump Cut Cafe, and we deck it out in horror stuff, and then we have all these horror screenings. But for me personally, it's weird because I was born in America, and I lived here till I was about 6, and so I was really into Halloween. Remember my first costume, remember all the traditions. Moved to New Zealand for the next 20 years.
What's it like there?
Barren.
Yeah.
I trick-or-treated every year of my life. So not now, but I will again this year with a 2-year-old. But for that time when I was in New Zealand, I'd get a couple friends together and we'd go trick or treating and we'd wear Jason masks or whatever. It was hilarious. I have memories of going to someone's house, and New Zealand's a very safe and quote marks country. I remember going to a guy's house. Old man opens the door. The character that Brian Cox plays in your film. So we're gonna die, and he's like, oh, Halloween. Oh, yeah, no worries. Just come in. We walk all the way to the back of his house, downstairs into the place where the kill room, and he reaches into his fridge and goes, do you want juice? and hands us juice boxes and says, see you later, kids, because no one knows what the fuck Halloween. They don't deny it. They just don't do it. Right. And so they'll try to find you something, but it's never, we were probably the only house that did it. So I have really weird memories of kind of just still trying to carry on something that meant something to me as a kid, but really it had no home there. And I don't think it's probably even changed now.
But I think that's an issue. I think horror fans need to rally around the world and bring Halloween to those who are deprived of it.
That's a cool ambassadorship. I should take on.
I think it's time because those stories make me sad.
Yeah, no, it is. It's weird
because especially when you consider that it started as a European tradition. So it's like it's Ireland, it's the UK, and my friends in the UK are like, oh, we just don't do it here.
Yeah,
it's like what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like
I have UK friends here now that are just so excited to be here for October.
And there's a lot of times I remember getting given money. And that's really weird because it doesn't.
How UNICEF?
It's not what you want. Like they don't know what to do, so they're like, "Oh, here's $5. Just
To me, it's a very simple series of steps. I mean, okay, locate horror fans around the world. Those horror fans need to start having Halloween parties, whatever country they live in. At least start having parties. And as they start breeding and having children, take them trick-or-treating to each other's houses and just make it a homegrown sort of...
and where we are now with social media, you could totally start this as an actual movement. Yeah. But it's true about having kids. I think that is true because the idea, I don't have fixed traditions, but my only real tradition is every year I want to find one, besides watching something like Halloween 3 or something again, I want to find one thing that might have been set on Halloween that I haven't seen before. So, and I search wherever. So this year I haven't seen it yet, but I screened at Jump Cut. I couldn't be there. Haunted Ween is going to be this year, and it looks just bizarre. Film from Kentucky, 1983, shot on film.
Wow.
Like, looks like a real movie. I saw behind the scenes. I was like, wow, everyone's got Kentucky accents. There's a killer in a mask, set on Halloween.
I
So-
recommend Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts of weird movies that you would never, like when you
Yeah.
start, you're like, there's only like 5 or 6 films set on Halloween. There is about 35.
Yeah.
And you just have to dig.
I mean, even The Exorcist.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it starts on Halloween.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I
Yeah.
just discovered this week that Day of the Dead starts on
Yeah,
Halloween.
yeah.
Yes.
That's the opening shot is.
I mean, Creep Show.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jack-o'-lantern in the window.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, that's one thing. But having kids, that's passed to you. It's a torch,
Right.
and you're like, well, I know what I want to do. And this first year, he'll get it. He's all excited. I want to dress like a dragon. Getting him in the costume will be the hard part, but going out, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Because he's going to know what's going on. He looks at werewolves. He's really scared of werewolves right now. He's like, are they coming? The werewolves? And I'm like, no, you're probably fine. The werewolves.
And I'm sure you get to vicariously,
Yeah. But he's not going to watch Trick or Treat anytime soon because, I've talked about it on the show. I saw Creep Show at 5 and it fucked me up. Like big time. That was the movie that fucked me up.
But I think you need that. I think
it's
as a
awesome.
kid,
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, you need that thing that fucks you up.
Yeah.
That sort of shakes you up a little bit and goes, because I think part of childhood is about getting scared of something and then conquering that
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
constantly protecting
Yeah, I
your
like
kids
that.
from scary things. You're gonna develop a weirder kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your scarring film? Do you remember? What was the one that messed you up? You were too young to see. Mine was the original Nightmare for sure. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw it too young and it just freaked me out.
That one didn't bother me that badly, but I think I was probably like 6 or 7 by the time I saw it. So I'd been watching
I was
horror.
older than that, and
Well, my parents never stopped me from watching anything.
Yeah.
So if like 3-year-old me, I'd just be sitting in the room while my parents were watching horror films. They never really censored from anything.
I was like
so
11 when I saw Nightmare and it terrified.
Yeah, I was about the same age.
That's a scary movie.
Yeah, and it was
first
it was
to
weird
see.
because I had seen so many horror movies up till that point, and they had never had the same effect.
Yeah.
And I think because I think I grew up on the Twilight Zone and the black and white monsters,
Yeah.
and Godzilla, but you learn to love those monsters like
Totally.
Dracula, Frankenstein, because they're so tame by today's standards that you just kind of become buddies with him. And then when I watched Elm Street, that was the first time I can remember not wanting to go to sleep.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
because
because that's
you're
what it's
like, wait,
playing
he
on. Yeah.
might be able to get me now if I go to sleep.
Yeah,
Right.
Like,
you
that's-
think you can get
as
in
a
your bed
kid-
and put your covers over your head so the
Yeah.
vampire can't get you, but now you're fucked when you go to sleep.
Exactly.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Wes.
there's no defense.
yeah. It's like, except in the sequels when you learn how to fight. But but it's true. There's nothing lovable in the first one. That's why it's such. I genuinely think it might be the best horror film because there's nothing to love about that character until the sequels decided to make him a cartoon.
Right.
But in that first one, he is just a scary fucking person who killed children.
He's a dirty old man.
Yeah, there's nothing good, and which is obviously that story Wes tells about seeing the guy down the outside his window. So that's coming from that real place of fear from one person and passing it on to us. You know,
But he still
which
had
is
that
genius.
dark sense of humor that
Yeah,
made
exactly,
you like him.
exactly, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, like it terrified me, but there was still that nervous laughter, like when he impersonates the hall monitor.
Yeah.
Like I remember my sister and I watching it. She was even younger than I was, and just laughing out loud at "No running in the hallway."
Yeah.
Like it was just.
And that's casting, right? Like that
Yeah.
that comedy, I think, is because of England. That's why when you replace him with somebody who doesn't have that same humor,
Yeah.
it can't work. Because I
Yeah.
think that's what the character was.
Less said about that, the better.
Well, of
Yeah,
course,
it's like,
of course.
let's watch the Elm Street remakes. Then.
When I was a kid, I used to I don't think they do this anymore because I keep looking for it. But when I was a kid, everything had a Halloween special.
Yes.
So like the Garfield had a Halloween special, which I asked a question about at trivia. Barbie had a Halloween special. There was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Halloween
Albert.
special. Fat Albert. And what I did is I would tape all of them because I loved Halloween so much. And so for years and years, I carried this tape collection with me of like the Fat Albert Halloween special, the Garfield Halloween special. Literally, I have like 25 of them. And when I was at NYU, one of my boyfriends at the time was studying conversions and film preservation, and he copied them all like really high res onto a DVD for me that I still have. It's amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
I
It
wanted
is
to too.
amazing. So yeah, I still have it. We need a screening, guys. We need a screening.
We just need
I
a
still
DVD
have
burner.
it.
My
Yeah.
favorite was the Disney Halloween tree.
I have that because it had the animated pumpkin who
Yeah.
hosted it. And it was pretty much, it was a clip
was a
show.
clip show, but it was
But it
great.
was awesome. And it had this great little Disney's Halloween treat
Oh, yeah.
intro.
It's on my
I loved
iPhone
it.
right now.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but they also introduced me to like Fantasia because I didn't. I was
Because
so
they did the Night on Bald Mountain
I was so
segments.
captivated by Night on Bald Mountain as a child. Like it was so beautiful and epic and spooky. And I had no idea what it came from until, some aunt was like, oh, that's Fantasia. It's really old. So it was a great way to sort of get introduced to other cool things that Disney had done.
It ushered me into Sword in the Stone, which is still to this day the only Disney film I like. I love that film. But they did the Mad Madam Mim Wizard's Duel in the special.
That's next on my checklist, is to bring back the Halloween special.
You need to. I miss that.
Yeah.
It was like such a quintessential part of my childhood was each year, what's going to do a Halloween special this year? And I loved it and looked forward to it every year. But
we get Halloween episodes of sitcoms and shit, but we don't really
Ally
get
McBeal will dress in costume or whoever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
But
Modern Family
it's
Halloween
not.
episode, but like we don't get the special.
And that was always great because it was like an hour long. And I asked at Horror Trivia last week, I asked a question about the Garfield Halloween special, which I have vivid memories of because they dressed up like pirates and they went to this deserted island to find ghost pirates. And it was scary as shit when I was like 5 years old because they hide in a cabinet, but the ghost pirates find them. And it was terrifying. And I loved it. So,
I want to ask a tradition one, or not tradition, favorite Halloween costume you've seen out. You know when you're out and you see one that just knocks your socks off because they
I know
nailed
mine.
it.
All right, let me think about that. But Rebecca, you got one?
I totally know mine because I saw it. It was last year at the LA one. And there was a guy dressed up, this is showing my age, White Snake. Band from the 80s. He was dressed up as David Coverdale and he was pushing around a car hood with a girl who looks like Tawny Katane dancing on it.
That's pretty
Greatest.
good.
He had a
That's
shopping
pretty funny.
cart with a car hood strapped to it and this girl in a white dress looking like Tawny Katane dancing on it. Brilliant.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You remember?
It was a couple of years ago. I had a party and a friend of mine had called earlier and he's like, can I bring some friends to your party? And I'm usually trying to be strict, like, one guest, please. It just gets really crowded. And he's like, you'll love it. I said, all right, fine. So this bus pulls up in front of my house and every single character from The Shining walks off. I mean, there was Wendy and Jack and Danny and the twins and Hollerin and the creepy walrus guy giving a blowjob.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Do you have a photo of that?
Yeah, I've got a group photo.
Share it with us at some point. 'Cause
I
that's
will.
cool.
It was, and of course, it was like all guys. So the guys are dressed up as the girls.
Weird.
Group costumes are always we did a group Twin Peaks a couple of years ago.
cool.
I went as Nadine because of the red hair, so I had the eye patch and carried her and threw cotton balls at everybody. But Dave went
good.
as Jacoby.
Yeah,
so,
I can see that. He
it
looks
was
like
a
the
good
doctor.
time.
The best is the director Robert Parigi.
Yeah.
What's the name of the film you made? With
Love Object.
Love Object. He's actually one of the smartest guys I've ever met. You start talking horror with that guy, it's just like totally cerebral. But I went to a party once and I walked in and my jaw dropped because it looked like I just saw The Tingler. He was dressed as the Tingler, had the mustache, the glasses. He looked like Vincent Price. He had the white lab coat, and he had a giant freaking Tingler thing. And I think I even saw him in shadow when I walked into the party. And I was like, oh my God, it's the Tingler. And I was so excited because it was like perfect. It was like, I think if you can get to the essence of a costume, that's usually where the glory is. It's not in like, oh, it's replica. It's more like, did you find that one thing that person thinks of when they think of that? And it was so good. I mean, I've seen a lot of great detailed costumes, but that one really like made me excited. I don't know why.
For me, God, that's a tough one. But I'm going to go obvious. I love Sean Keller and his kids, and they always are super creative. But one year, Sean Keller showed up in overalls and had green moss grime. He was Dirty Barrel, and I'm like, that's pretty good.
That
He's
is
like,
pretty good.
And it's super cheap. You know,
That's genius.
Best costume. So that was a really
That's
good one.
good.
Yeah.
What about your best as you've gone?
Yeah, speaking of costumes, God, my favorite. I posted a picture of this a week or two ago. I've done it 2 or 3 times, but 1999 was the pivotal one where I was Norman Bates or Mother. In again, cheapest costume ever. I bought my grandma looks and acts like Mother, so I just borrowed one of her dresses.
So she murders people in their showers?
Oh, that's maybe. Who knows? I don't want to.
That'd be great. Carrying a shower around on somebody else. They
Yeah.
could go to the shower. You could be the knife.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
That's
I've
pretty-
seen
okay, good.
stuff similar.
I'm glad to know it happened.
But I got one of my grandma's dresses because she dresses just like Mother. The wig cost $8, and I just got a butcher knife out of the kitchen.
Wow.
and
Good.
walked around, and everyone's like, "You look a little too comfortable in that costume."
That's pretty good.
So that was my best, but then most creative. When I was little, I would always try to make something. And I remember one year I tried to be a Ghostbuster, and the only thing I could find was like whatever toy they sold. So I took a box, like picture like a just like a board game box, but something a little bigger. I don't know what it was, maybe a train set. It was a box, and I took a Frisbee and put it on the back and glued it and just spray painted that all black.
Proton pack,
Yeah,
boom.
they're proton pack. It was like a box
Done.
with a circle in it and
Yeah.
like a wire hanging out. So I just made my own proton pack.
I'm sure that's
And
what they
it
did
looked
pretty much back in
crap.
that
Yeah,
movie.
probably. So that was my most creative, was trying to be a Ghostbuster.
That's
But
cool.
I don't think I succeeded. So
Nice.
Michael, favorite, most creative?
I don't know. I went as Khan.
Oh, wow.
Star
Oh my
Trek.
gosh! Did you have the fake chest?
I didn't need a fake
Oh
chest.
man!
But
I actually saw you that year as Con.
did you?
I remember
Yeah.
that,
And I had the costume like custom made and everything.
Oh, man.
And that was a good one.
That's awesome.
He's talking about the original Con, just so there's no.
Oh, not Cumberbatch.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
Got it. My favorite one was 2 years ago. I went as a slaughtered camp counselor, and so I got like the actual like 70s camp counselor outfit with like socks up to my knees and everything. And then in Kevin Bacon style, I stuck an arrow through my neck. And it took forever to try to get it to stay there all night because every single time I turned my head, I would take out like 5 or 6 people on either side of me. But that was my favorite one. My most creative goes back to my childhood where I had to make my own costume. I really wanted to be Glimmer. And Glimmer was this character from She-Ra. Remember, She-Ra was He-Man's sister?
Yeah.
Well, She-Ra had a sidekick named Glimmer, and I liked Glimmer a lot better than She-Ra, so I wanted to go as Glimmer, but nobody fucking wanted to go as Glimmer, so they didn't have this costume out. So
Even your childhood has deep cuts.
I know. So, but I wanted to be Glimmer, so I made my own costume out of like a purple leotard, and Mom bought me a whole bunch of like crinoline. So I put crinoline on it, and then she had this staff with this like big purple jewel up at the top. So I spray painted a paper plate and taped it to a broom and carried the broom upside down.
Nice.
So I just remember the act of making the costume and being so proud when I was
That
done.
seems a big part of it. Seems that creative act with
Yeah.
a child.
Making it, yeah.
It's
And
so huge. You know,
Nobody
it's
had a freaking clue who I was. I had to explain it to every single person in our
you knew.
neighborhood. But it was great.
And that's cool.
I
you
loved
know?
it.
That
Yeah.
is pretty neat. My last 3, I'm pretty happy. I'm on a roll.
are.
This year was Silent Night, Deadly Night because I was in a place I had no idea. It always starts from not knowing. I walk into a place, I look around, and then I see the inch of Halloween of the Christmas costume. And I'm like, oh shit, you never see Christmas at Halloween.
Yeah.
So I went all out, a little blood on the face, the axe, and that was fun. Did that twice. Won't do it ever again. Way too hot. But last year was probably the best, but it wasn't my favorite because I'd done it twice, which is Dressed to Kill, playing Michael Caine's female incarnation with a big butcher knife and a wig.
We've both
and
done that now. That's weird.
not a butcher knife.
Oh,
I did the fold out. Yeah, that's a weird one. But my favorite, and I've done it twice, 10 years apart. And I think it will be my go-to forever. Is I basically make myself look like I'm in black and white. I wear a suit. And then I have a movie clipboard, a black mustache, and hair slicked back, and I put a pink Angora sweater around my neck. And I go as Ed Wood. And it says Ed Wood Check. And I've done it two times 10 years apart, and I love it because it's so fun. And people, as soon as they see the name, they're like, oh, of course. You look like you're in black and white, but you're not. I just think, I try to play the real Ed Wood, not Johnny Depp's Ed Wood.
Right.
Yeah.
I did-
Come on, I like
I'm not
that
as
one,
pretty
too.
as Johnny Depp, so I play the not so good looking Ed Wood.
I did go as Peggy Bundy one year too,
Oh,
which
that's
was
great.
a lot of
Oh,
fun.
yeah, you did.
I enjoyed that one.
Wow.
But it's fun, like that problem solving. I think you saying why it might be sad that some places don't do Halloween is because it's one of the few times where the parents and the kids are working together on something that seems kind of abstract, and then it becomes something.
Well, everybody, I mean, my whole thing with Halloween is like, it's great to love it for the candy and the parties and the haunted stuff. But to me, there's something much deeper there.
Yeah.
That it's, everyone likes to say, like, well, Christmas is the best holiday because it's about giving and, and I get that. But to me, Halloween, again, it brings out the fun side of people, like the artist in people.
Yeah.
And it's a celebration of all the cool stuff in life. Whereas Christmas sort of has the sanctimonious side but Christmas has some very dark, weird beliefs. Like, you've got to be good if you want to get a present.
Right.
You have to earn it.
And
Do you ever see that
Halloween's
movie, Santa's Sleigh?
No, I haven't.
The first 10 minutes, watch it.
Oh, okay.
Just trust me, you will. It's right up your alley.
But
Don't
I mean,
watch
like,
the whole thing,
like Christmas has this like preachy side where it's like you've got to earn your gifts, and Halloween's like, fuck it, dress up as a monster and go bang on someone's door and get your candy.
I always feel weird at Christmas. Well, it's not a weird feeling, but like I celebrate Christmas. My family always did, but we've never once been to church. So it's always kind of like, we're going through the motions and just kind of aping off the cool parts
It's
of
kind
the
of
holiday.
becoming secular, and by the way, Christmas existed before Christianity.
Yeah, I
so
mean, it's cool
it just got
pagan
co-op-
stuff,
Yeah,
so
it started as a
Winter
pagan holiday.
solstice. Yay, we all get presents for it. So
Yeah.
I like it. I'll take it.
Did you working through this? Did you have not so much sequel because I'm sure you get asked that a lot, but just in general, other horror ideas that you really wanted to evolve and maybe got initially scared off because of how it was received, but now maybe getting re-energized about?
Yeah, I mean, what it's definitely helped me realize is the kind of films that I want to make. Whereas I looked at the tentpole movies, which were great experiences, they're also 10 times more stressful because you do have this
Imagine.
legacy that you're supposed to live up to. Whereas creating sort of original, fun, and sort of darkly satirical horror films, I realized like that's more my game. Because like I said before, there's something you get out of creating something original that people embrace and prop up that's so much more rewarding than just co-opting someone else's pre-existing property. And I was hugely inspired by that sort of 80s Amblin era of films. Like it was just a golden era of original concepts. Poltergeist, Gremlins, Goonies. And they were movies which I thought were true four quadrant in that your parents went with you to see them and your parents loved them as much as you did. It's not like a lot of kids crap now where the parents are just waiting for the movie to end so they can get out and it's all for the kids.
And the studios are saying, we're aiming at the 14-year-old. It's like, no, aim somewhere
Aim
higher.
Aim a little higher.
Yeah.
The kids will like it too.
And that was part of the intent with Trick or Treat was that it's like, well, it's kind of the movie that maybe you are too young for, but there's that moment when their parents are like, okay, I'll watch it with you, and sort of and guide you through it. And it's never so brutal that parents have to worry too much. Like I remember when I went to go see Gremlins with my parents, and there was just this moment where I kind of looked at them like, you're letting me watch this? Like, people are dying. Santa Claus is getting attacked by a gremlin, and you're letting me watch this? Great. It felt like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
And like those are the kinds of movies that I want to make going forward.
Good. We
Nice.
need some more genre movies from people like you.
Well, I think we need fun genre movies.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I feel like everyone's so caught up, whether it's studio dictated or if it's, a particular generation of filmmakers, but everyone's so caught up in trying to be harder, darker, edgier than everyone else. And to me, that's like the Ed Hardy approach of making entertainment. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I've got an Ed Hardy shirt and a trucker cap and I'm in a Hummer.
You're hardcore.
And it's just like...
You got a barbed wire tattoo, I bet, too.
Yeah, it's like, shut the fuck up. Like what happened to making fun horror movies? Like Cabin in the Woods is one of my all-time favorites from the last few years.
Yeah.
Or look at Let the Right One In, which isn't like a fun lark, but there's something kind of innocent about it, and elegant. And I think everyone forgets that horror films can be elegant. They can be beautiful. And to me, it's cooler to be willing to be vulnerable and gentle. Like Rosemary's Baby starts with a lullaby. You know what I mean? But everyone thinks because it's a horror film that every single second has to be dark, scary, jump scare, jump scare, jump scare, and the soundtrack only has to be this droning, scary crap.
Now you've got Ruth Gordon making jokes and being all over the top at times, and it's hilarious. It's like
all the best horror films have contrast.
a balance. Yeah, there has to be a balance.
Yeah.
Because just like life, without humor, who has a life without humor? It doesn't exist.
Poltergeist, I mean, the first act feels like it could be a suburban family
Mm-hmm.
comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we wrap up, kind of off of Elric's question, I've already heard you talk in some other interviews about sequel, and you said, well, not right now, at least from your perspective. Just hypothetically, if another very enthusiastic filmmaker or peer had a great idea for it, would you be open to that sort of thing? Or is it your baby and you feel like if there is going to be another one, it's got to be me?
Well, I mean, I love collaborating. I do. I think that that's the best part of making movies is being able to work with your friends and making new friends along the way. I'd be open, I think, down the road, but if we do ever do another one, I'd probably want to take a stab at it myself, or I'd probably bring in one of my closer collaborators to sort of help me with it.
Right.
But down the road, who knows? I mean, or what I'd really love to do is, at least have do more movies, but also have like graphic novels every year.
Yeah.
So every year it'd be cool if we did like a Trick or Treat, Halloween special or Trick or Treat series of graphic novels. And then I can sort of create a sandbox for everybody to come in and play in.
I could imagine it as going back to the Halloween thing, as a yearly like HBO or somebody with actual money. Let Sam be the character, and you have like 3 interconnecting stories each year, something like that. It would be so fun because then you would have something to look forward to every year. The character stays alive, but you don't have necessarily the pressure of a movie and the budget and what it has to do for a studio.
Well, a couple of years ago, with FearNet, they aired it for 24 hours every Halloween, which is
That's pretty amazing.
amazing. And then they said, well, we want to shoot some promos for the event. Would you be willing to just kind of do these little, short films or something? I was like, yeah. And so we went off and made a bunch of these like 1 minute, 2 minute pieces where Sam invades other holidays.
Oh, cool.
So it's Sam's
I haven't seen
version.
Fun stuff.
Oh,
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, it's like Sam. It's like Easter dinner with Sam. We did Father's Day. We did Christmas. We did back to school. And it was just a blast to sort of do these little vignettes and sort of have the character of Sam pop up in those. So I have my love for him hasn't diminished at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll post some of those on our
That's
on
cool.
our Facebook and all.
Well, again, he seems like a character that you've scratched the surface. He could be anything. And do anything. And
Yeah,
that's
I
kinda
would love
fun,
to
yeah.
explore his history.
Yeah,
to
totally.
me, he goes back thousands of years.
Yeah, no, that's
awesome.
And and FearNet's doing that this year too, right?
Yeah. Every Halloween we'll be showing it for 24 hours. So tune into FearNet if you have it for that. And then again, if you're listening to this weekend, then Monday night, if you're in LA, Egyptian Theater,
Yep.
Michael will be there. And if not, if you just have Facebook, if you're on Facebook, you can freaking watch it via
For free.
via Legendary's page. So
Yeah.
And if you've never seen it, like a real plug is I'm someone who loves to be surprised by movies. I try not to watch trailers anymore at all.
Me too.
As much as possible.
Yeah.
Because I just got so bored with how movies were going. And so I can honestly say that might be the last film that surprised me. And I don't mean like surprised me by quality. Oh, it's surprisingly good. I mean, within the movie, there were certain storylines, and I'm just going to say Anna Paquin. That
one for sure.
I was like,
Did not see that coming.
almost
Yeah.
jaw-droppingly surprised, and I was like, "Whoa!" so if you've never seen this movie, reason enough to get you like in the spirit of a holiday.
Yeah, once the first or second connection happened,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, there's like kind of like Pulp Fiction where things are out of
Yeah.
order, but everyone connects. So yeah, it's really special.
It's really cool.
Just see it, plain and simple.
Yep.
But thank you so much to Michael for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Giving us some
Blast.
time. And
I have one plug.
One plug. Do it.
If you have 12 hours of free time,
I'm gonna drop by for a few of it.
I'll be there for
Sunday
some.
at Jump Cut Secret 16, we do 16 millimeter film projection all day from noon till midnight. We're going to project cartoons, TV specials, and anthology horror films, all horror related.
Anthologies.
3 anthology horror films. It's all secret. It's all going to be random. But our projectionist knows what he's doing. He's got really cool stuff. We're not closing it's not like a typical screening. There's still going to be food and coffee going all through the day. But it's just going to be a weird event. And I don't know if anyone's going to come, but those who come, I think there's going to be some fun stuff.
I think the only hint I got was from Mike about the 3 anthologies. He said 1 is 70s, 2 is 90s.
Yeah.
And I figured out the 2 90s ones
Yeah.
for sure. So now I have to
I want to make a guess.
But I honestly think the
tell
most
you off.
fun will
Okay.
be the early stuff. I think like the cartoons that he's picking, it'll be kid friendly at the
Yeah.
start.
Well,
and some of the weird stuff. So.
I have. I mean, if you guys want it, I have a 16 millimeter copy of Season's Greetings, the short.
Yes.
It's just officially added. If you're open,
I have it. I've got.
Done.
I would actually love to see what condition they're in.
Okay.
But I'm happy to let you.
He's an archivist type, so
Yeah,
he'll
he'll
protect
treat
it.
it right,
I'll
yeah.
tell him tonight. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you heard it here first.
Terrific. And I have one plug. My film is debuting on Shock 2 Drop
that's right.
tomorrow. So
Oh, nice.
Oh, congrats.
yeah, check it out.
It's not just her film. I helped.
Yeah,
I
Elric
held
produced
something.
it.
Producers get no credit.
He produced
No, I'm just kidding.
it.
No,
No, Elric was definitely.
But
and you're in
it's
it.
a cute film. Oh yeah, but that
You and
doesn't
Dash
mean
are in it,
anything.
so-
But it is very cute. All those little Shock to You drop, they're all really short. They're a lot of fun.
they're
Yeah,
good.
they commissioned like 5 of us to make little teeny tiny like 2-minute Halloween themed snippets.
Yeah.
So yeah, mine
But
goes
they're
up
cute.
tomorrow.
They really work. But
Cool.
it's
Yeah.
fun. So have a happy Halloween. We won't
Yeah.
hear from us until then, probably.
No, we'll be back in November.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Michael.
Happy
Bye.
Halloween.